ahead and go live.
We are live. Go ahead.
Very good. Let me just, there we go. Everybody's bigger now. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of Chalfont Borough Council to order. If nobody objects, would it be all right if we didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance because it kind of gets rambled together out of sync? Are there any objections to that? Is it a problem? I see no objections, so I hope nobody thinks we're being disrespectful. Dawn, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mayor Brian Wallace. Tracy Bowen. Jeff Coddington.
Here.
John Engel.
Here.
Mark Glidden.
Present.
Marilyn Jacobson.
Here.
Michael Kelly.
Here.
Mitch Meyerson.
Here.
Gia. I don't know who caller 01 is, and I don't know who the meeting person is either, and they're muted.
The meeting is the thing running the meeting.
Oh, okay.
I don't see a caller to them.
Okay.
Not see the caller 01 person, but yeah, meeting is just the computer running the meeting.
Okay. Sean Curran.
Here.
Mike McGinnis.
Here.
Pat DeGangi. Richard O'Brien. And Robert Milligan.
I'm here.
Thank you, Dawn.
Sure.
An announcement of, thank you. An announcement that this meeting is being recorded. I am not aware of any changes, addition, or deletions to the agenda. Is anybody else aware of any? I see none. Do we have any public online or any public comment, Sean and or Dawn?
No.
Okay, no public comment. We'll move to the consent agenda. Would anybody care to make a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes from the November 9th, 2020 council meeting with disbursements from the general fund of $172,588.46 for the month of November? The financial report will be filed for audit. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Also note that the mayor is here now.
Thank you.
I am, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Wallace.
Good evening, everyone.
And okay, there is a special item on the agenda. It is the annual president's message. If there is no objection, I'm going to say it's in the packet since we have no public online and everybody has a copy of it basically in front of them or available to them. Are there any objection to not reading it? Do you think it should be read because of YouTube? It will be in the minutes of this meeting after the meeting. I see no objection. I'm sorry, Mitch.
I was just saying it's online anyway, like you said.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions, comments, additions? Okay. Thank you for that. Mayor's report, Mayor Wallace.
I have nothing to report this month.
Okay. Central Bucks Regional Police Commission, Mayor Wallace.
Yes, we did cancel our building committee meeting this month, as well as finance committee also with no new business during this month. We are instituting our new victims assistance program, and more details about that will be coming will be coming up soon as the chief implements that plan. And that plan is one that is being paid for by a grant that we received from the federal government. And the Victims Assistance Program is a backup for people who have been victims. So after the police come in contact with them, they will get notified or contacted by the Victims Assistance Unit to make sure that they are directed to anyone that can provide them with assistance that they may need as a result of some action against them. So this is actually a big deal. This is being shared by, I believe it's Buckingham and Plumstead as well. This is really a big deal because nobody else really has this, and it's a step ahead in policing with a follow-up just to make sure that people aren't just left behind after they've suffered some type of trauma at the hands of somebody that's taken advantage of them in many ways. So it's just another step in being a step ahead on our at the Central Bucks Regional Police Commission. These are things that nobody else has. So I'll be bringing you more details on that as that is implemented. We are going to have the chief go over that program at our next meeting. Marilyn, do you have anything else you want to add?
I could add that it is a $279,000 grant and it's over 3 years. So
evidently it's very difficult to get. So we were very lucky to get this money, and Denise Spence, who is our secretary at the regional police, she wrote a terrific grant, which really made a difference in getting this money. And I believe that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mayor Wallace. Marilyn Jacobson, Public Works Committee.
Yes, the report is in the packet. I just want to, I'm sure you've all noticed that Butler Avenue from Skyline to Bristol is getting a new water line put in by Aqua. When they complete that, they will do as we require with our streets, resurface to the center line of whatever they've disturbed. So Sean has at least talked to the county transportation person, Rich Brailer, to see if we could get PennDOT, the county PennDOT program to resurface the other half. Otherwise, we're going to have half of Butler resurfaced. And it seems that that would be a great cost savings. The last time Butler Avenue was resurfaced was in 2004. So we're hoping we can work that out. So that's all I have to add.
It seems in some places, Marilyn, that kind of crosses, almost pretty much crosses over the center line.
Well,
They justify not doing half of it.
If it does, then they resurface the whole width.
Okay.
Correct, Sean? They've done that before when, especially when they put in the line, I think it was Oak Avenue, they almost paid for all of that just because it's a narrow street and they disturbed over the center line. Mitch, you have a question?
The question is Westview Avenue done? They only put one of the bumps back, and I mean, I'm fine with that, but is that it, or are they coming back with more?
Sean, do you want to talk about that?
That's all the speed humps that are going back in. After the traffic engineer looked at it and speaking with PennDOT, we were limited on where we could install a speed hump on the hill. It really was not preferred to put it on the hill for safety reasons. So it's just the one. And they might have a little bit of minor line striping still to finish, but I believe it's basically completed, if not done. They might have finished it yesterday. I have to confirm.
Will you remove the old signage then? Or you can keep it up to scare people.
Yes, the signs will be relocated for the new speed hump and remove the other ones.
That's all I
Anything
have.
else? Thank you. Facilities Committee, Mr. Coddington.
There's nothing new to report. We will be voting on action item number 3 tonight with regard to the lease for 16 Sunset. And that's all we have for facilities for this month.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Myerson, Utilities Committee.
No, we've been taken over by COVID. There's nothing really going on.
Okay, and there is no Finance Committee report as there was no meeting since our last meeting. Unless Gia has joined, is Gia on the line? I think not. Okay. So we will move to staff reports. Manager's report. Sean.
Yes, I'd like to, well, I'll let everybody know that I was up at the Public Works Department today. They have all the plows and the salt spreaders, everything's on and everything's been tested and it's all ready to go for Wednesday for whatever comes. And this past Friday, attended the pre-construction meeting for Chalfont Crossing down at Bristol and Butler. And they're going to get us a schedule, hopefully sooner than later, but they're anxious to get started and have basically everything in place they need to do so. So that weather dependent could be starting very shortly, most likely after the holidays at this point, but
Good.
That's it.
Okay, the
Sean,
engineer's report. I'm sorry.
Mr. President, if I may, Sean, is there any truth to the rumor that the Moser track is completely sold out?
Yes. I heard that from Ed that that was a week or so ago, or maybe a week and a half ago now, that he confirmed that the whole thing's sold, every unit.
Amazing. Great.
The engineer's report is in the packet. Mike McGinnis, anything to add to your report?
No, my report is in the packet. Thank you.
Okay. Captain Milligan, the police report?
Everything is in the packet unless there's any specific questions.
Anybody have a question? No. And the public works report is in the packet as well. And so for monthly reports, the Chalfont EMS and Chalfont Fire Company report is in the packet. Chalfont we'll do it right. Chalfont Chemical Fire Engine Company number 1, 2021 operating budget is also in the packet. And with that, we will move to action items. The first action items would be a resolution to adopt the 2021 Chalfont Borough budget.
So moved.
Anybody?
Jeff, I'll second it.
I can't look up and down. We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion on a resolution to approve or adopt the Chalfont Borough 2021 budget? I see none. For the sake of the recording, as we talked about it last month, the budget is a balanced budget as required, and there is no change in the tax rates to the borough citizens, residents, property owners. In that case, a resolution requires a voice vote. So we will start with Tracy Bowen. Yes. Yes, Tracy? Yes.
Yes.
Jeff Coddington.
Yes.
I will also vote yes. Mark Glidden.
Yes.
Marilyn Jacobson.
Yes.
Mike Kelly.
Yes.
Mitch Myerson.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Action item number 2 concerns a request for a permanent easement on lots as noted in the agenda. Sean, do you want to give a brief background on that in case anybody needs it?
Sure. This is for Bridgeview Park, next to the bridge there, next to the creek side, opposite the creek. When the borough sold the Water Company, they own that property, so they never had an easement for the existing water line. It was just overlooked when the water department was sold that that they never received an easement for that portion of the water main. So there's already a water main buried there, and they're just looking to replace it. So this permanent easement will just give them that access to replace and do any future maintenance they need to do on that property.
And Mike McGinnis, is there anything you need to add to this?
No, nothing that we need to add. We've reviewed the language in the agreement. The language is standard. We had a conversation, Sean and I both did, with Pat DeGangi, who agreed that this is, again, very commonplace. So there's nothing else that we need to add. The document is in executable form.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the permanent easement on the properties as noted in the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Jeff Coddington.
Thank you.
Is there any questions, comment, or discussions on this? I see none. In that case, we can do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Action item number 3 concerns the second amendment to the lease agreement for 16 Sunset Avenue, the train station. There would be a motion to approve the second amendment of the lease agreement for 16 Sunset Avenue between the landlord, the Borough of Chalfont, and the tenant, David M. Shafkowitz. Mike or Sean, anything we need to hear?
No, I don't know, Sean, you or I, but no, this is just an amendment to a lease agreement which was originally executed back in January of 2015. There was a first amendment and extension which was previously entered into, and then the tenant did exercise his renewal options, which got the monthly rent to $605. Really a provision in this extension and amendment is the requirement, in addition to the extension of the monthly rent, to post a security deposit in the amount of $605 to mirror the rent. Otherwise, there's nothing else that I think is particularly substantive to address.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody care to make a motion for the second amendment to the lease agreement for 16 Sunset Avenue between the landlord and the tenant?
So
No
moved.
motion?
Marilyn, you have it.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Coddington. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the motion? I see none. So all those in favor say aye.
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 And anybody opposed? No. That motion carries unanimously. Would anyone care to make a motion to appoint Dawn Tremmel as Chalfont Borough's new agency open records officer?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Maryland.
In that case, I'm going to say this is a motion. Is there any questions, comment, or discussion on the motion? Besides, I'm going to say thank you, Dawn, for not objecting to this. Anybody else have anything to say? It is not a small job. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? Congratulations, Dawn.
Thank you.
Thank you, actually.
Thank
You're welcome. We have a first reading of ordinance 463 concerning fireworks, and the smart thing for me to do is say, Mike McGinnis, give us an introduction on this.
Sure. So council's aware, I think that we had previously passed a fireworks ordinance in the borough which pertained to regulating various aspects of particularly fireworks sales within Chalfont. We really mirrored the language that had existed at the state level with respect to legislation that was recently passed. This ordinance really, rather than addressing the sale of fireworks, would address the specific use of fireworks, and in particular with respect to the permitted days. And as the ordinance is drafted, for example, it does state that the use of fireworks within the borough is restricted to the following holidays: New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Diwali, Memorial Day, and the 4th of July. And then it builds out an exception that says if there are special events that Borough Council deems as giving rise to the exception, and then there's a list of including but not limited to weddings, anniversaries, milestone birthdays, etc. There could be a petition, a contact, I guess, made to Borough Council to attempt to authorize a grant of fireworks within the borough on those special events. Otherwise, fireworks would be limited to those days within the hours of 5 and 10 p.m., except for half-hour period on New Year's Eve, and beginning on 11:45 on New Year's Eve, ending at 12:15 a.m. on New Year's Day. And then it has provisions. And I believe this ordinance substantially mirrors similar ordinances which have been enacted in other municipalities in the area, particularly, I would assume, due to concerns of expansive fireworks usage given the legislation that passed in Harrisburg. And I believe Mr. Coddington brought this to our attention, and I do believe that it is legal and enforceable if council were so inclined to proceed. Certainly, we would make appropriate advertisements and handle it that way. But that is what this ordinance would regulate within the borough.
Thank you, sir. So, as this is a first reading, it's really a motion to advertise the ordinance. Would anyone care to make such a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Is there any question, comment, or discussion on this motion? Mr. Myerson.
Yeah, so as Mike mentioned, we're at the mercy of, especially where I live, we're on the edge of the borough, at the mercy of New Britain Township. Do you know if New Britain Township has such an ordinance in line? I mean, I know Officer Milligan can tell you, I've called the cops a few times around here where we've had midnight firework attacks. Do we know if New Britain Township is in line?
Mitch, in my research, I know Doylestown Borough, New Britain Borough, and Warrington, as of their last meeting, adopted the same ordinance. I lifted this ordinance word for word from the New Britain ordinance that they passed at the beginning of the month.
The New Britain Borough?
Borough. I don't know about the township.
So that's our problem as a township.
Yeah, one of the reasons they did this was because of complaints similar to yours, Mitch. I don't live far from you. It's more about the time and how long they go on at night. In addition, fireworks are almost unenforceable unless you're right there at the scene, but it would make Chalfont, we would be in line, so the Central Bucks Regional Police Department would have unanimity in terms of ordinances throughout the entire coverage territory. So we would mirror Doylestown and New Britain. It wouldn't be like parking ordinances and things like that where they differed from borough to borough.
Mrs. Jacobson, Maryland.
Yes, I believe that Doylestown Township also has a similar ordinance that they passed when we did the first fireworks ordinance. I believe they added specific dates to theirs. So Doylestown Township is close to us also, especially over by the covered bridge. So that helps.
Yeah, the thought process behind it is the commonality between, or this, not the commonality, the unanimity and the fine itself is substantial. Somebody probably would only do that once. Judge, I mean, it goes up rather quickly in terms of escalation from first, second, and third offenses. Whereas Warrington just made it a flat $600 first offense. That's it. And then second, third, and fourth.
Yeah. Doylestown Township, I guess one of the advantages of working remotely rather than in person, but Doylestown Township does have a similar ordinance, which they passed, it looks like about a year ago, pertaining to New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Chinese New Year, Memorial Day, and July 4th. And then the language again is pretty much pulled verbatim about special events and timing. So it looks like it's uniformed in Doylestown Township as well.
Yeah, I was specifically asked to add Diwali in November. So that was our ad in terms of in Chalfont. The month of November is a pretty busy and celebratory time for Hindus.
I'm going to say that I support this ordinance, although I fear there's going to be difficulty in using it. Captain Milligan, do the police have to observe this? Literally observe the fireworks, or can they take a report, investigate, and then perhaps cite somebody for fireworks?
Obviously, visual observation would be preferred. It's understood that, by the time we get the phone call, dispatch to get there, it's several minutes later. I apologize for the dog in the background. When we get there, we can try to hunt down the person. Usually we're very suggestive and give strong recommendations to stop their activity prior to obviously issuing citations is always our preferred methodology. However, once we, like you said, the repeat offender, second, third, fourth offense, we walk away 5 minutes later, they throw a few more up in the air, we come back. We usually just monitor the area. They're pretty readily available and accessible to get to in the borough because you can see them from pretty much everywhere. So I don't know if that answers the question you were looking for or not. It's kind of a very ambiguous answer, I guess.
No, it does. As I said, I am in favor of the ordinance. I'm afraid the enforceability could be frustrating to a point, but it certainly gives some backing to the police and hopefully some relief to our citizens. So thank you for that answer, sir. Any other questions, comments?
Just beware, we passed this. This makes us officially all grumpy old people.
Well, we can set off fireworks to celebrate.
Well, Mitch, when it comes right down to it, you cannot legally set off a firework in Chalfont. Nowhere. You cannot set off a firework within 150 feet of a occupied building or unoccupied building, first of all. So you'd be hard pressed to find that. That's the state law. If you fire them off on the street or somebody else's property, you have to get their permission. So firing them off on Jason Drive, say out somewhere up and down our street, I'm not against fireworks at all. Let's just keep it within limits. It's just, but if we were to use a public street, you have to call Chalfont by state law. So by the letter of the state law, you can't fire fireworks off, except for on Brian Wallace's property out by the river.
My property and my neighbor's property, actually. But other than that, you're right. I think you're right.
Well, we'll tell everybody to go there.
Yeah, there you go.
Just get permission first.
I think the biggest problem is especially for us old people, our pets.
Yes,
it doesn't really bother me, but my dog, goes nuts.
It's young children and pets.
That's what's probably bothering Captain Milligan's dog.
Our veterans too. Don't forget veterans.
Yeah, I mean, if we do nothing, nothing will happen. This gives us the ability, hopefully, to do something, which is why I'm in favor of it, but have my concerns about the ability to enforce it. Any other questions, comments, or discussion? I see none. It is an ordinance. We have to do a roll call. Actually, it's an advertisement. Therefore, Mike, I'm right. We can just do a voice vote on an
You do
advertisement,
not
correct?
need a roll call vote for advertisement authorization.
Okay. No further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. And action item number 6 is an advertisement of the 2021 Council, Planning Commission, Historical Architectural Review Board, and Zoning Hearing Board meeting dates. Would anybody care? We can do it. Does anybody have any concerns, questions over the schedule, meeting dates that are proposed to be advertised? Marilyn?
In view of consistency, I suggest that the Borough Council and the summary Borough Council meeting, that we mention that Borough Council meets on the second Monday and that the summary council meets on the fourth Tuesday. And I would
Yes.
also, because we do that with everything else, I would also suggest that instead of on the summary Borough Council meeting, instead of December 28th, we change that to the 21st of December, because it's normally very hard to get people to a meeting on December 28th. So we've always tried to move those dates before Christmas instead of after.
Yeah, because one of the things and one of the most important things that can happen is if there's any problem with our budget, we may need that last meeting in December. So That's a very good suggestion. Is there any objection to putting the last summary council meeting to Tuesday, the 21st of December? I see none. I would suggest, if we take Marilyn's suggestion about noting that it is the second Tuesday and fourth Monday, that we specifically point any dates that are an exception to that rule.
You have
the 21st.
You reversed it, John. It's the second Monday and the fourth Tuesday.
Thank you.
We can definitely clear that up. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Yes, and it is the second Monday and fourth Tuesday. Thank you. But my point was, at least you understood my point, even if I didn't make it. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Dawn.
My question is your intention then to do away with the specific dates for the council meetings that are listed and just have that sentence?
No, I think it's best to actually.
Yeah, I think we would just add it to the beginning there. Like,
Yeah.
we can work on the wording, but I think we would keep the dates for clarity for everybody.
Okay.
You would say something like normally meets on the second Monday.
Okay.
And then put the dates. Or with the exception of something.
All right.
Really nice job.
I
We do this every year. We go through this. So.
Right. But it is, the more we can do to get people to understand when the meetings are, perhaps the more people will attend. Okay, with the changes made, would anybody care to make a motion to approve advertisement of the 2021 Chalfont Borough meetings as noted on the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, question, or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That motion also carries. I am not aware of any old business. Does anybody have any old business? I see none. And new business, on page 55 in the packet, we have a request from a resident relative to waiving parking permit fees for 2021. Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
What is the amount of revenue that is involved here?
Well, revenue is probably zero, but the cost to a resident is $50 per year. I'm not trying to be funny about that. The $50 is basically to cover the office work and the printing of the permits and so forth and so on.
So are you saying that no one gets a permit at this point?
No, what?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You mean, I'm not saying there's any problem. How much money is involved in this period?
Well, it depends. It's $50 per permit per year. And I don't know if his name is, I'm going to say Galante has suggested that the $50 waive would be to help people because of COVID effect on their finances. His suggestion was the 2021 permits are already printed, or at least the order is beyond cancellation at this point. So his suggestion was to say that anyone who has a 2020 permit just keeps displaying it through 2021, and then we use the 2021 permits in 2022, and anybody who wants a new permit would have to buy a 2022 permit, or perhaps use it gets confusing.
Well,
And just for a little clarity, we've already sold some for 2021. Some people have come in and already purchased the permit.
I think my original question was really, so how many people do this?
Roughly 20, around 25 people, 20, I think.
I think that's what we had for last year. I think it was like 23. Don't quote me on it.
Yeah, we've already had 4 people purchase them so far for 2021.
Did we include that revenue in the budget?
There's not a lot of revenue from it. I mean, by the time we purchase the permits, there's clerical time spent. There's letters that are sent out to each person. I mean, Dawn's already spent probably 3 hours of her time so far in the last month preparing for next year to sell these. So, and that doesn't count the people coming in and out and sending checks and sending the wrong amount and having to send money back. And there's a lot of work involved in it. I mean, it's a $50 permit for the entire 12 months. So it's.
Yeah, there's nothing that goes to the bottom line, Brian. It's all to cover costs.
Yeah, the tags themselves were, between $300 and $400 to have printed up.
No.
I think we need to look at this as, like we look at banners. That's the way I looked at it when I read it. We don't allow even worthy organizations to hang a banner across Main Street.
Tracy, we're not sure we can hear you. If you want to move closer or speak louder, I guess.
Closer to your computer.
It's about 1 million miles away.
Can you hear me better
You're
now?
too comfortable.
Yes.
My concern when I read this was the classic case of targeting certain groups that are going to get relief when everyone would want relief. And this is something that we agreed in good faith and negotiated. Okay, you will cover the cost of this. If you folks want to have this, you'll cover the cost. And expecting the other taxpayers to bear the cost in principle is something that I wouldn't be comfortable with. Yes, it's nominal amounts, but then we've kind of pulled on the thread of who's getting relief during COVID. So we're giving this set relief. Now, what happens when people come in and they want relief in other areas? I think for now, we stick with it based upon if we can't say yes to everyone for everything they want relief from, we don't say yes to anyone. That's just my opinion in not looking at the dollar amount, but looking at the principle of it to apply it fairly.
I agree with what I've heard you say, Tracy. My 2 cents on this is that we have gone through such pain with the parking permits. And given that the 2021 permitting process has already started, no matter what we do, letters are going to have to go out explaining it if it changes, or simply letters to the existing people who have permits. If you want to renew it, you have to do this. I personally am not in favor of changing this. I feel we've worked so hard on it, and I hate to say only, but we are talking effectively 95 cents a week here of expense incurred, and I appreciate that every penny counts, and I'm not trying to be cold, callous, or diminish the concern, but I fear the complexity this would add is not worth the results it would give us, and that's just my personal opinion.
I've always heard this argument from people that we incur further clerical or office expenses other than the actual printing of the permit, and I think it's a bad argument. It's a terrible argument from a business standpoint. We have staff. We pay them a certain amount of money, salary or hourly, every year for the same amount of work. Now, we only incur more staff costs to anything unless we actually have to go and pay them overtime to what we already pay them, or we have to hire another person to handle the workload because the workload is too much. Does that make sense? So we already have people in place that handle all clerical, permitting, whatever it happens to be. They're there. They get paid no matter what. It's like a ski resort. You have to keep the lifts running regardless of whether there's one person or whether there's 20 people. So we don't really incur, and I had this argument with Sandra, we don't really incur any additional clerical cost because people are there to do clerical stuff, and this is just one of them. So I think our real cost is, like we talked about, I didn't realize it cost that much to print them out. $400, that's actually a lot more than I thought it would be. So that's really our cost, and the letters that go out, the stamp that's on it. That's the cost to the borough.
I'm not trying to justify the cost. My major objection to going along with this is, I guess, twofold. And again, I hate to say only $50, but when I look at it, the cost to the resident who wants to take advantage of the program is very small. It's less than an hour of parking in Doylestown Borough at this point, or as soon as their rates go up. And I just feel that this program was so contentious throughout its program, or throughout its inception and initiation, that I would think that this is not a fix that is going to work in our favor. That's just my personal opinion, 1 of 7. Mr. Myerson, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm a little bit at a loss here because I wasn't in on when this was all being discussed. So what I'm a little confused as, I mean, if we decided that it was okay, I think this is just, if I remember correctly, 2 specific neighborhoods, correct? Right.
2 or 3.
2 or 3. So if it was okay for them to park in the street because they needed special relief because it was unreasonable that where they live, they don't have enough parking on their plots, that was probably, in my mind, a mistake made when the building process was done. So why do we charge these people in the first place? I'm not getting that part.
Well, first of all, the neighborhoods affected were actually court ordered when Chalfont denied them. The builder developer went to court and got their development approved by court, and they have no option on their property for more than parking of 1 or 2 cars, basically. So I don't think anybody who knows the history would disagree that this was never the right way to do things, but it wasn't a borough option. The cost
just the one wasn't court ordered. Chalfont Green just didn't make the developer put in extra parking. Patriots Place was court ordered, and they made us jam more lots in there than the ordinance allowed. Short, not as wide streets so they could get more cars in. But Chalfont Green, the borough did not force the developer to put in extra parking.
But
That was
that, and isn't there also some along the townhouses? I can only call them the Hassan townhouses because it's the only way description I know. I forget the road name. But regardless of where it is, it was put in specific neighborhoods because the configuration is such that they do not have an option of widening a driveway or extending it. In Chalfont Green, the homeowners association, if I'm getting it right, requires their garbage toters to be in their garage, and their garages are made in such a way that there are an awful lot of cars that literally would not fit in it, much less with toters and a lawnmower, and they're not allowed to have a shed, according to the homeowners association. And the borough worked hard with Chalfont Green to show that there was enough space around the open space to put in parking spaces. That did not go past. So this is the relief that was granted, which I'm going to say is water past the dam at this point. The fact is we have the permits, and my personal opinion is that I think given the, I'm going to call it nominal cost of a permit, is to keep it simple and keep the program going as is, because it was so hard to get to this point and get a program that is working for the people. That's just my opinion of it.
Part of the reason for charging also for the permit, if I remember correctly, was to limit it so that there was, you had to buy a permit to have a car parked on the street. The idea was to make it so that you didn't have the street lined with cars down both sides. There was, each house could buy one permit, and the nominal fee would, also, maybe limit some people from just getting it, where if it was free, everybody potentially would get their one free permit and have a car on the street. If someone wants to save $50, then that's one less car on the street overnight.
And also, you want them to give it up when they don't need it.
I think that's where the $50 really comes into play.
Yeah. Anybody else? Marilyn?
Yes, I feel that the permits have been very effective in the number of streets of cars that we have on the street, even during the day. We've had some people that originally needed it because they had college students and they were various situations, but now the college student is no longer there. They've graduated, they've moved on, so they don't need a permit anymore. But the permit has been an effective thing, and I think we need to stick with our policy here. We already have 4 people that have purchased for next year, and I think we should just continue with the program.
Mark.
Marilyn hit the nail on the head. She's exactly right. That was really the core of the issue that we spoke about when we put this through in the first time. And I agree. I think that if you back off of this at all, we're going to end up with a bigger problem, more cars in the streets, and I agree with her. I think it's been extremely effective.
Anyone else?
I also want to add that we did resurface Patriot Place last year, or this past year, and several residents added on to their width of their driveway if they could, to take care of the problem, if they had one. So they took advantage of that also. So it only seems fair that we've put this in place. Let's keep it in place.
Yes, Mitch.
Marilyn just brought up something I just remembered. You can't in Chalfont just willy-nilly create a curb cut, right?
No, they're limited to 20-foot width by ordinance.
Because there's someone around the corner who just created a new driveway, and I'm wondering if they're just going to start cutting into the curb.
It was permitted. There's certain aspects where, yes, you can, and there was someone on Holland Drive that added a second driveway to their property, and it was allowable. They went through all the proper channels and got the permits.
It looks like a loading dock, I hate to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it fit within, I mean, I wasn't involved in it, but it went through the proper channels and it was allowed.
Yeah, my friend built it, and I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh. But all right, but so they can create a curb cut if that's what they want?
If their property size allows for it, yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? We had a request from a resident. I think it makes sense to get a motion on his question of changing permits, or if you prefer a suitable motion, if desired, would be to say that we recognize the request, but there will be no change in permits. Would anybody care to make a motion on this so we have an official action of council?
So moved.
Which one? Which motion? Is the motion to accept the resident's suggestion or to maintain the program as it currently exists?
To maintain the current existing program.
I'll
Thank
second
you, sir.
that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Now, if there is a motion, I must ask, any discussion, question, comments on the motion on the floor?
The email's to Sean, so can't we just, basically, we're asking Sean to go back and respectfully say, hey, you know, we brought up the council and it wasn't something that they're interested in entertaining.
That's an excellent point. Mike McGinnis, can it be done that way?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, for the sake of simplicity, I would ask Mark Glidden, because I led the effort to get a motion. Will you be willing to withdraw your motion?
I will withdraw that motion and instead suggest that.
Yes,
I was just going to say, instead suggest that the borough manager respond directly to the email with the thoughts of council.
And Marilyn, you're okay with withdrawing that motion since you, okay.
Yeah, and John?
Yes, Mitch.
So my first inclination was, you know, in these troubled times, yeah, go ahead and take it away. But after discussion, it seems like something that could get really out of control. And there was a rhyme and reason why this was put in. So I think Sean just sending back a letter saying it was discussed and that's as far as it went. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Well, I'm going to direct, I can do this. One of the things I'm allowed to do as president. I will direct Sean to respond to this with the fact that it was considered by council. And before I say that completely, does anybody have strong objection to that? Or any objection to that? I see none. So Sean, you know where to go on this. Thank you, sir.
Consider it handled.
And thank you. And with that, do we have any correspondence, Don or Sean?
No.
No correspondence. We have no public online. And we had no public comment brought in earlier, so I assume there's still none. Then I will make the announcement that planning is scheduled to meet Monday, December 28th at 7 p.m. Central Bucks Regional Police next meets Thursday, December 17th at 7 p.m. with a virtual meeting. HARB meets Monday, January 4th, 2021 at 7 p.m. with a virtual meeting. And the next scheduled council meeting is Monday, January 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And that also, I'm sure there's been no changes, a virtual meeting. And with that, if there's no further business to come before council.
John, can I ask one thing real quick?
Yes.
Every year they do the fire company does the Santa Claus through town. And every year it takes us a good 45 minutes to an hour to find out what date that is and what times they're hitting certain streets and things. And every year it goes by and people come running out afterwards and going, I wish I knew that they were doing that again. So is there a way for us to put that on our website, team with them, to just create a little bit of a clear explanation of when that is and when, the trucks are expected to go through certain neighborhoods? Because it's a great tradition, but it's always very difficult to know exactly when that's happening. Their Facebook post says when they're doing it in 2017. So maybe to help them out a little bit, if we could post something on our website or contact them about, hey, let's help you, get the word out.
It is on the borough website. It's on the first page. It's the first news article, and we can definitely share it on Facebook. Dawn, did we do that already once?
Yeah, and I think the date off the top of my head, I want to say it's the 19th.
It's this.
That was this year. Mike, just so you know, all their latest stuff is always posted on Facebook now. They don't really do the webpage. That's where I get it from, is the Facebook. Also, Blaze the Dalmatian is one of their Facebook pages.
But I'm not aware of any particular schedule that lets you know, like, when they're expected in certain neighborhoods. They just called and let us know that it was on, and they gave us the date.
It's on the Facebook page.
A street by street or neighborhood breakdown, but they are out, and usually you can hear it coming if you know which day it is.
No, they have a breakdown of every street and time. They give it to you on their Facebook page.
Yeah, I was just looking for it. They used to give a street by street, where we should be around it. 30.
It's there.
Is it?
On the Chalfont Fire Company. On the Chalfont Fire Company, actually, I think this is on the New Britain. I just Googled it. So on the New Britain Borough page, they have a copy of the message from the fire company saying that it will be December 19th, and they will shortly publish the street schedule. So as soon as if anyone sees it.
Sorry. Ours says the exact same thing on our page. So as soon as we get the street by street breakdown, we'll add it to ours as well.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And with that, I know of nothing else to come before council, so I would ask, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
You all want? So we have a motion, and I think we really don't even need a motion nor a second. So we will be adjourned at 7:57. Thank you all very much.
Happy holidays,
everyone.
Have a good one.
Be safe.
Night.